Yosef, you'll just cut and paste YouTube. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing in Eretz Yisrael? Shalom Aleichem. We're here live from Chicago. Very special guest, David Brandis from South Bend, Indiana. Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. This is what happens. Gary, he muted me, unmuted me. One more time, for the third time. We are live from Chicago. Good morning in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so you probably already heard for the third time that David Brandis showed up all the way from South Bend. Took him 3 hours to get here. And he's going to, he's going to be back home about 3 in the morning, he says. 3 in the morning. So tremendous shkoyach for coming out. He came with his child, Moshe, who's starting Gemara next week. Real quickly, today's shir is being sponsored by Menachem Seawald. David Ben Malka, L'Refuah Shlema, there's one. Another sponsor, Andrew Fuchs, Lilu Nishmas, his grandmother, Rezel Bas Yitzchak, Halevi, on a yahrzeit. May she be a Melitzas Yosher for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. Amen. Yesterday's sponsors, which I didn't print out, were the Cliftoner Yid, who's Avi Gurwitz. We're going to put this up in memory of Yoni Cohen from Chicago, Big Bal Tzedakah, Bal Chesed, the stories. A guy shows up in Edison. He started at Salah, 2 shuls. He started a Bika Chaylim. He bought the house across the street from the hospital. All these things, Eli Dykman knows about all this. Great. This guy that's staying by me, Avi Kamler, he came at Shiva and he told the family that, he started 2 shuls and Bika Chaylim, and the family had no idea. All these things, Beseitzer, never wanted his name on anything. Unbelievable. All right. Real quickly, a few emails. We're shtickle late, and we have a nice daf ahead of us. I asked that people should check in, so thank you for checking in. Dear Rebelli, just checking in to say hi from your hometown, Ramat Bet Shemesh. I couldn't imagine life without Daf Yomi, especially yours. Baruch Hashem, I've been learning for a long time. Went to a religious school, spent 3 years after high school in Teres Yisrael, and continued learning ever since. Made Aliyah 4 years ago, and until January 2020, I wasn't able to find the Gemara shir that fit my schedule and style that I was looking for. I got inspired from the Sima Shas and decided to take the daf on. I didn't find Yeshir straight away. Maybe 2 weeks into Brachas, I found it. That's what happened to Benjamin Schwartz as well. All right, maybe 2 weeks into Brachas, I found it. Of course, I'm still with you and hooked. Just cannot wait to come back to the center. Nothing beats the live shir. Safe travels back home. Warren Carlos. Yishkoyach Warren. This is from David Address. I just want to thank you for the best Chalamoy trip ever. Coming out 12:15 a.m. in the morning to do the daf live with you and the Chabur was hands down the best Chalamoy trip ever. I don't know if there's a picture. We got to get a picture. Ellie, you got a picture of David Address with his yellow. He came with the whole gear, the whole COVID gear. Stam shtick. The Baal Machaber Hanigin, it's all about the Yomi. One last one here from Mordechai Zapaznik. I want to thank Rav Eli Shlita for the chart of the 3 cases of Shmuel, of Asur and Ve'ima Arvin, Daf Samach Vav. I don't know, it was a shtickle shvach, it was last minute. He's talking about this chart right over here. But I guess it gave him some clarkite. I love all the charts and the pictures because I myself am very into Photoshop. I put out a weekly Dvar Torah for kids and Photoshop pictures on it. I'm attaching the Dvar Torah so you can see it and show it to the Olam. I hope to be able to hear many more shiurim from Rav Eli, many more years to come. Your Talmud, Mordechai Zapaznik from Flatbush, New York. Here's what he does. All the stuff. Yishkoyach. We can use his help actually. All right. So today is Daf Samach Zayin. And we're holding, actually, in the top of Daf Samach Zayin. And we're holding 3 lines down. So we're discussing this case right over here, where there's 2 chatzeros next to each other. There's an inner and an outer chatzer. They place the Eruv, this red dot over here, in the inner chatzer. Everybody's mishtatif with the Eruv, besides one guy from the inner chatzer that wasn't mishtatif. Here's the picture. Shalom Aleichem. I missed you, man. I just found out Josh Rosen listened to this shir. A bunch of people, but where's Benzi Friedman, Louis Cohen? Where are all these guys? They should come out, show a little support. But I understand it's 11:15 in the morning. All right. Well, we missed you. We saw you on Zoom, but you're here already. You're already up. You're already doing the shir. You might as well come. On the sukkah, but Torah live for sukkah, cigar. I hear. The cigar part is probably what tipped it over. All right. So, I know, Avi. It's Lashon Akiyah. Trust me. He understood. I understood. There's no reason to. Avi Kamiansky for you. Okay. Very good. So one of these guys, one of these dudes in the inner chutzner. Oh, here we got a picture of David Address. Yishkoyach. Here, if you look at Eli Dykman's screen, you'll see David Address in the yellow suit. Send it to us. Put it on the. Oh, the simcha Zachaim and Veli. That's him. I know. By the way, when the first time I met him, I'm going to say this again and again. I met him the first time. It's as if I knew the guy for 30 years. As if I grew up with him. This Zoom thing is not a joke. I'm serious. You see the same people, the same faces, same smiles. You hear the voice. I saw him. Okay, no. Oh, what? We never met before? No, we never met. Yisrael Goldstein, all these guys, every single one, unbelievable. Anyway, fine. Let's get to the sugya. So the guy forgot the Eruv over here. So what do we have yesterday? We had that. What would help us if he is mevatel rishus? What could he do? Who is he mevatel rishus to? He's mevatel rishus. He has one or two things. He's mevatel rishus to his own friends, to his own guys that are in this chutzner. Doesn't help anything because what about these guys on the outside? Or he can mevatel rishus to the guys on the outside, but he can't because you cannot be mevatel from one chutzner to another chutzner. Says the Gemara. Ask the Gemara. Omer le Rav Huna b'rei Rav Yishua l'Rava. 4 lines down, if one of the guys in the inside didn't do the Eruv, what is the problem? Let him at least do a bittul to the guys inside, to his friends. And what do we say? So how does it help the guys on the outside? Look, he made an Eruv, they're all in this together, the inner chutzner and the outer chutzner, they're one. So as long as he has an Eruv and he's mevatel to his friends inside, it should work. Why? So we continue on. Kiman. So what are you asking me? You're asking me Ki Rabbi Eliezer. This will explain his question. You're only basing your question on one shita called Rabbi Eliezer that says that you're not mechuyev to do bittul on each and every person in all the chatzeres. Just do a general bittul. But I'm talking about the Rabbanon. So that explains why it doesn't work. To do bittul just for yourself and your buddies in your chutzner is not enough because you didn't do a bittul for the outer guys. His question was, maybe you don't need it. Maybe it's enough to do one bittul and that works. He says, no, that works, yes, according to Rabbi Eliezer. It doesn't work according to Rabbanon, and that is the problem. So what's the bottom line? Like we had yesterday, we're going to see a little bit more of it in the ayins. Bottom line is, how could you do bittul? Do bittul when you have a chutzner within a chutzner, chutzner within a chutzner. And we said, very interesting, since the inner chutzner could slam the door shut, they use the eruv for themselves, and they have to come on to the bittul of the other chutzner, according to Rebbe Akiva. Great. Zog the Gemara. Rav Chizda Rav Sheshes, this is Agadata, Eruvin style. You know, like a story. Ahu Gavra, and then it goes right into Eruvin. So but we got a little bit of Agadata. Enjoy it while it lasts. It's about 3 words. Rav Chizda Rav Sheshes. You have the famous Rav Chizda and the famous Rav Sheshes. When they would bump into each other, Rav Chizda Martin Svosei Mimasniyased Rav Sheshes. Rav Chizda's lips would start trembling from all the brises that Rav Sheshes knew, and basically when he met Rav Chizda, he would try to figure out what these brises mean. So he would say, Rav Chizda, how do you explain the contradiction between this brise and this brise? Rav Chizda wasn't holding in the amount of knowledge that Rav Sheshes had, he would start trembling. On the flip side, Rav Chizda was the lamdan. He knew how to learn, he was very deep. Rav Sheshes marta kule gufe. Rav Sheshes, not only his lips, his entire body would tremble. Mipulpule de Rav Chizda. So Who's the halacha like? Rav Chisda was the lamdan. He was sharper than Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes knew more. So who's the halacha like? Rav Sheshes. Now we already learned that if you have somebody that knows a Sinai va'ika harim, the one that knows, that has more knowledge, we pass like him. So the halacha would be between the two. Here it is, right here. Eruvin daf samach zayin. But it gives us more background. Who's Rav Chisda? Who's Rav Sheshes? What were his strengths? We know Rav Chisda, who is Rab's father-in-law. We build a picture. Rav Chisda and Rav Sheshes. Now, it's Rav Chisda's turn to ask Rav Sheshes. This is where Rav Sheshes starts trembling his whole body. Shnei batim b'shnei tzidi rishus harabim. If you have two houses on two sides of rishus harabim, the rishus harabim between them. Come the goyim and create and build a mechitza between them. Here's two little goyim, just nicely. They just don't, I guess, the yidden without yarmulkes. Built the mechitza right here. Here's the Rishus Harabim going right through. Build the mechitza. They're in the middle of building. This picture is showing you in progress. As a matter of fact, there's a toolbox here. If you look closely, toolbox, hammer. He's banging in the nail, and he has a couple pieces of board. He's almost done. Okay, so now you have two houses and a chutzner in between. They created the chutzner when? On Shabbos. Now, obviously, Rashi points out immediately that if a mechitza was created on Shabbos or on the weekday, a b'shogeg, b'mezid, it's always a mechitza. We don't care when that it was created on Shabbos. Mao means, can one be mevatel the reshus to the other? Can you relinquish your reshus, your property, and say, hey, you could have mine so that you could walk in the reshus around between us? Now going back to this machlokes that we had yesterday, you have two chatzeros side by side, and you have an opening between them. But the two chatzeros, here at least two people live here, two people, total 4 people, let's say. Can I relinquish my reshus to you? And we had the machlokes yesterday. Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan says yes. Shmuel says no. Says the Gemara, according to the Manom, it says you cannot do so. Why? Like here. You need oisr ma'arvim. You need to do so. So this. What happened yesterday? Well, okay, let's just see here. You need oisrin u'ma'arvin. You need 2 things. In order to do bittul, mevatlim, there's only one case we said. One case. That Shabbos starts out, that they answer each other. Every time you have more than one person in a chutzner, you cannot use the chutzner unless you make an Eruv. That's the whole point of Eruv, that we're all in this together. And that you're able to do an Eruv. Over here, you weren't able to do an Eruv because it was a Rishus Harabim. So, you need the 2 conditions. You need oisr ma'arvim. Hashto di boyu l'eruvin me'etmol matzim ma'arvim. In a case where, if they wanted to do an eruv before Shabbos, they could have. Amrus ein bitul reshus mechatzel chatzer. You Shmuel hold that you cannot do any bitul, even in a case. Here's the case. You have 2 chatzers next to each other. Could they make an eruv before Shabbos? Absolutely. But they chose not to. They forgot. So, because I forgot to do the eruv, what's my next option? Let me do bittul. Let me just give you my property. Now there's a sole owner. Now we can carry. You cannot do so, says Shmuel. But I had a way out of it. Erev Shabbos, I could have made an eruv. So in our case, it's like a kavach chaymer. In our case, in our case, if they wanted to make an eruv in middle of Rishus Harabim, in the middle of Ocean Parkway, no way. What changed? That the guy they decided to put up some sort of mechitzas in the middle of Ocean Parkway. Okay, but I didn't have that option Erev Shabbos. Like Kolchkein, it shouldn't work. You don't have the 2 conditions. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it says that I could do bittul in this case when there's a side-to-side chotzer. Maybe it's only in this case that you could do bittul. Why? Because I could have done it Erev Shabbos. So therefore, I have the option to do bittul. Since I could have done an Erev, I forgot, so I'm going to let you do bittul. But in this case, where they built a mechitza on Shabbos, I didn't have the option to make an Erev Shabbos, so maybe I don't have the option to do bittul today. Bittul is just, if I forgot, I don't have a choice, I'm stuck, great. But that's only because I could have done an Erev, maybe. That's his kasha. But in Rishus Rabbi, you couldn't do an Erev beforehand, so therefore there's no option of bittul. Maybe Rebbe says, they're not connected. I could do bittul. Whenever you could do bittul. Nothing to do with the fact that you could have done an eruv or you couldn't do an eruv. So Rav Sheshes answers him, Ein mevatlim. In other words, so Rav Chizda, the genius, the bigger lamdan, so to speak, the more charif, pilpul, he asks Rav Sheshes kasha. Rav Sheshes typically trembles. Rav Sheshes answered him, Ein mevatlim. Why? Because you need the two conditions. Meis nachri b'Shabbos, so yeah, he continues to ask him. So what happens if you have a guy in your chutzner? If he's in your chutzner, so we had a case yesterday, the guy showed up on Shabbos. Could you rent it on Shabbos? Now, over here the guy was there the entire time. He's there on Erev Shabbos from Friday, he lives there. And of course, if you have a person that's not part of the Eruv, it ruins the whole Eruv. The whole point of the Eruv is that everybody's in this together. One guy that forgets, or one guy ruins it. What happened is, Meis Nachri b'Shabbos, the guy died. Now there's no person there that's going to create a problem. He's not there. Even if a guy leaves town on vacation, he's not a problem. Certainly over here, he left Tehilim HaEmes, he's not a problem. Let me see. Is this very hot? It's a good cup. It's a good cup. I couldn't tell. It feels cold, but it's hot. This is Chicago for you. No Slurpees, no nothing. They have wine. Andrew Glatz is the wine guy. Should have seen. He got me Eli Stefansky. Brilliance. It's delicious. Andrew Glass says delicious. Very good. But you know what? That's not nice because in Eretz Yisrael you can't get it. I don't think, and it's not available. Oh, it's a non-kosher winery. Okay, he's giving me the whole thing. It's a non-kosher winery and it's special. You can't get it. Fine. Mao Ali b'demand Omar soichrin loyti boyloch. So yesterday, what do we have? Yesterday, the day before, I don't even remember anymore. Certainly we had it yesterday, but we started the day before. The idea to rent from the guy on Shabbos. Yeah, we started a few days. You rent from the guy, and once you rent from the guy, you have to do bittul on Shabbos. Everybody does bittul. Who does the work for? No one really. Only that one guy that you're mevatel to. The guy that gains everybody's property, he's the guy that gains from the whole idea. Okay. He's the one making a kiddush, let's say, so he needs this more than anybody else. He's going to make a bris, whatever it is. So you're all mevatel to him, he could carry in and out. But you have to do two things. You have to do schirus, you have to rent it from the guy. Once you're done renting it from him, if he gives you the permission, then you have to do bittul. And we discuss schira v'lekito, could you rent from his worker, da-da-da. Now, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you could rent it and you could afterwards do step number 2, which is bittul loite bailach. Then certainly there's no question that the guy disappeared. Is not a question. And if you could do two things, first schirus, and then step number 2, bittul chadim abaya. So over here you only need one thing. What do you need over here? Bittul. You don't need schirus. You're not renting him from a dead man. What about his relatives? They're not here. They might exist, but they're not coming into the mavoi. Even if he has somebody that inherits him, this is how I understood it. It doesn't matter. So what if it's owned now by Johnny? So he lives in California. He's not going to ruin it this Shabbos. So what do we need? We need bittul. So of course, if Yochanan holds, you can do bittul. Because if you could do two things, you could do one. According to the Mando, it says you cannot rent from the guy. Now, in that case, because you can't rent from the guy, maybe that you could do one, you could do bittul, or maybe there's no difference. Again, Rav Shesh's answer is Ani Oimer Mevatlin. Now, when was the guy was there from before Shabbos? So they could have rented from him. They had the option to. So Memela, you mevatel. You could be mevatel. V'hamnuna Amar ein mevatlin. Now Rav Hamnuna holds that Erev wouldn't have helped. Explains Rashi. And Memela ein mevatlin. Very good. Since they didn't rent from the guy, they could have, but they didn't. So Mela, the Erev wouldn't have worked, didn't work. Bittul doesn't work in place of an Erev. Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Shmuel. It's very interesting, I just noticed this now also. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. We have this all through Shas. Rav Yehuda, one of Shmuel's famous Talmidim. Rav's Talmud, also Shmuel. Why am I saying this? Because we're going to see at the end, yesterday I noticed all the way at the end, yesterday we had that Rav Yosef forgot his learning, and he said, I never heard this halacha, but he was saying over halacha from Shmuel. I mentioned it yesterday, like under my breath, because Rav Yosef was a Talmud of Rav Yehuda, the Talmud of Shmuel. In other words, Rav Yosef wasn't just saying, I never heard this halacha. So maybe there's halachas he didn't hear, but he should have known this halacha because it's his Rebbe's Rebbe. And here you have Rav Yehuda, the Talmud of Shmuel. This is very interesting to me. You have a mavoi, and you have one cheverman guy. Call him a cheverman. One guy, in case they're listening to it, so they call him a cheverman. You have one guy that's ruining it for everybody. The Shabbos guy. He ruins it for everybody because he's not part of the Eruv. But he's a mavoi. He could go out like everybody get out. But he has a secret passage, a small 4x4 tefachim. It's pretty small. I personally wouldn't want to go through that passageway. It's kind of small, narrow. But he has a way out. That's how he goes. Even if it's 4x4, pasuach labika, it's open to a very wide open area. Even if he brings his camels and his wagons right through the mavoi like the Jew, he doesn't ruin it for them. Because of that secret passageway, call it secret, is it? He has a way out, he doesn't need to use everybody else's opening. Why did he make that opening? Because he likes to sneak out through that opening. So I have two pictures. I like this picture a lot because a lot of action here. There's camels, and it's showing you the part of the camels. But it's not really showing you the hiding. So here, this is from the other. Here's the way he has out. You see? Right over here. I did it a little in red so you could see. Right over here. It's not so geschmack. But the problem with this picture explains the sugya better, I think. There's no camels in this picture. And here's a tiny little opening to a bika. So you see the bika a lot. But I think that's the main part of the sugya, the bika. The problem is that his hole is the opening is so small you don't even see it in the picture. You guys see it? See something. Something right over here. I even highlighted it with a red marker, but okay. Anyway, so between the two you get the idea. Here, even the camels come in and out from the main opening into the mavoi. The guy doesn't ruin the mavoi. Typically he ruins it since he has a way out through the back. He has a back door, back entrance into the bika. He uses that. That's his favorite way to go in and out. Now, Rashi points out also, he has a lot of room. It's a bika. He could take care of his stuff. He brings his pickup truck with the wide wheels, with the wide loads. He likes it over there. That's where he likes. He doesn't want to go through the mavoi and push with all the people. Okay, so today we're going to discuss a lot about this karfaf. Here's a karfaf. A karfaf, we had it many times. It's a place that is enclosed with mechitzos, but it's not mukaf ladira. People don't live here. What do? They store wood, eitzim v'avonim. Beautiful picture from Kol HaLashon. A lot of wood, lumber, stones, whatever it is. And if you look very closely with the microscope, you could see that there's a tiny little opening between the chotzer and the karfaf. I'm going to explain a little more in a few lines what a karfaf is compared to Rosh Hashanah, compared to the Carmelites. So pasuach lekarfaf mao. Very interesting lashon. Don't remember it really. I didn't do a search. But Rashi says ulpana means that he heard it from his Rebbe, who heard it from his Rebbe. Ulpana. He heard it from his Rebbe, who heard it from a Rebbe. We're turning to Daf Amud Beis, sponsored by Mark Steinberg, who's not here tonight. A shidduch for Yitzchok Pesach Yehuda. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe there's a l'chaim or something. Ooh. Yitzchok Pesach Yehuda ben Meir Yosef, and by anonymous Hatzlochin Yiddishkeit and Schos for his family to be Torah Diki Yidden. Afilu pasuach lekarfav. So even though, what's the idea here? If the guy has an opening and it leads into a karfav, but it's walled, so what? He's going to have to climb over the wall, open the door. Yes, he likes to go into the karfav. He could do his business there. Nobody sees. He has his room. He likes it over there. Since he likes it over there, then he doesn't go through the mavoi and ruin it for the Yisraelim, the Yehudim who live in the mavoi. Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef Amar Tarvayu, Nochri, that has a karfaf, Beisos Saim Oyser, Yoiser me Beisos Saim and Oyser. So we had this Beisos Saim. So Saim is 2 saw. Basically, it's 50 by 100, like the Chotzer, like in the Beis HaMikdash, 50 by 100. So if it's small, it's only 50 by 100 amma, 100 by 200 feet. For whatever reason, that's not large enough for him. So if it's not large enough for him, say Rabbi and Rav Yosef, then the guy's going to start using the regular mavoi. Using the regular mavoi, he asers it on Klal Yisrael, on the Yisraelim, on the Yehudim, on the Jews. If it's Yosim Beisos Saim, that's already large enough for the guy. Then Eino Yoser, then he starts going out through his little door in the back, and he doesn't go through the mavoi, and it's not us, it's kilu. The guy doesn't live there. All we have is a bunch of Jews. All the Jews made an eruv, great. But when it comes to a Jew who forgot to make an eruv in a mavoi, then the reverse is true. V'Yisrael Beisos Saim Eino Yoser. If it's small, he won't use the mavoi. He'll use the opening and go through the smaller place. Why? Because on Shabbos he doesn't have such packages that he needs such a large place. Now it becomes a carmelis. Once it's more than 2 saw, it becomes what we call a carmelis. And Memela, he wouldn't be able to carry there because it's a carmelis. He'd have to use the mavoi. And once he uses the mavoi, now you have a guy that's part of the mavoi, and he wasn't mishtatif in the mavoi. He didn't contribute to the eruv. Mela, he has the ability to answer. So let's stop here for a second and discuss real quickly. We have a Rishus HaYachid. Rishus HaYachid is 10 tefachim high, like this table, 10 tefachim high, and 4 by 4 tefachim wide. That's Rishus HaYachid. So if I carry something from Rishus HaYachid into Rishus HaRabim, I'm over Issa Deraisa. Then you have what's called a carmelis. Carmelis is a Rabbanan halacha, and it's anything wide open that doesn't fit into the category of Rishus HaYachid, doesn't fit into the category of Rishus HaRabim. Like an ocean, like a desert, like a giant bika. It's not a Rishus HaRabim. People don't go through there. You don't have 600,000 people according to Rashi, or whatever the criteria is for Rishus HaRabim. But it's neither Rishus HaYachid. So Rabbanan said, you know what, people might get confused. They'll say, if you can walk through, if you can carry in a desert, so you might carry from the desert, you might carry from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid. So they said it's all asr. The whole carmel is asr. Then we have something called a karfaf. Karfaf is similar to a carmelis, but it has walls around it. Midoi Raisa, what is this? What's a Karfaf Midoi Raisa? Since it has walls, it should be Rishus HaYachid. It's a Rishus HaYachid because it has walls around it, surrounded by walls. What's the Chacham said? But since it's not Hukav L'Dira, since you don't live there, it's not a residence, it's more for lumber, let's be machmer on it. Say you can't carry from one to the other, you can't carry in it. So let's see. So this is not anything new. This is basically the same exact question we had a second ago. What if the backyard is open to karfaf? Great. The same answer we had before. You asked the same question that we just asked. We just answered. If it's less than 2 saw, from 2 saw and down, then he's going to use it. Great. Omar Ula. Omar Rabbi Karfaf Yoisim Beis Saim Shloi Hukaf Lediro. You have a karfaf. You have this giant enclosure, more than 2 saw. Afilu kur, even if it's 30 saw, vafilu kurayim or 60 saw, huge. Hazoy regla toichoy chayav. Comes Rabbi Yochanan with the chiddush or halacha. If you throw a ball, you see this guy throwing an object, a green ball. Here's the green ball. I don't know if you can see. You guys see it over there? If you're standing in Rosh Hashanah and throw something into the karfaf, I don't care how large it is, says Rabbi Yochanan, could be more than 2 saw. It's as if you took something from Rosh Hashanah and threw it into Rosh Hashanah. Yichayv midai raisa. My taima, mechitzahi. At the end of the day, it's Rosh Hashanah because it has mechitzas surrounding it. Elashim chuser is the urine. Okay, so it's used for lumber, but because it doesn't have the urine, it's not a residential place. So Chachamim were machmir and they said it has a halacha like a carmelis. But midaraisa, forget Chachamim for a second. Before Chachamim came along, it's a regular Rosh Hashanah. It has walls all around it. Rosh Hashanah. They said, let's be machmir and make it into a carmelis. But at the end of the day, you can't take their chumrah and make it into a kula and say, you're not chayiv achatos. You're not chayiv misa. They warned you, they said, if you're going to throw it from Rosh Hashanah into that wall, into that enclosed area, you're going to be chayiv misa. He said, Chacham said it's a karfaf. Poof, and he throws it in. You're chayiv misa. Masa Rav Huna bar Chinina. Ask Rav Huna, kasha. What if you have a rock, a little island in the middle of the ocean, which is a Rosh Hashanah? Why? Because it's 10 tfachim tall, and it's 4 tfachim wide. You can't go from Rosh Hashanah. What's a yam? Like we mentioned before, a yam is a carmelis. So you have a stone, 10 tfachim high, 4 tfachim wide, and here's the ocean. So this is the carmelis. This is Rosh Hashanah. You're going from Rosh Hashanah to carmelis. Is that allowed? No. Chacham said it's asur. So now I go from one to the other. Pachas mikan. What if it's shorter than 10 tfachim? Mittaltalin. So we have 2 parts of this brisa. One, that it's taller and you cannot go from the yam to it. And one that it's shorter, you could go from the carmelis to the stone. Why? It's shorter than 10 tefachim. And Mela, what is the stone? Another carmelis. So I can go from carmelis to carmelis, no problem all day long. So again, the ratio is taller than 10 tefachim. I cannot carry from taller than 10 tefachim to the yam, to the carmelis. I can't go from Rosh Hashanah to a carmelis. But if it's shorter than 10 tefachim, I'm going from a carmelis to a carmelis, that's okay. Then all of a sudden the brisa says, Ad kama, ad beis ha'asayim. So it could be talking about the ratio, that it's taller, at kama beis ha'asayim, or that it's shorter at kama beis ha'asayim. The Gemara explains. So here's the picture. If the stone is the size up till 2 saw, up to, if it's 50 by 100, this looks a lot larger, up to the size, so saim, then what? Ahaya. Ilema Seifa, that it's very short and it's considered a carmelist. But if it's 2,000 amma, I cannot go from one to the other. Why not? If it's a short little rock, 2 tfachim tall, protruding from the ocean, but it's 5 sa. Who cares? At the end of the day, the stone is a carmelist, the ocean is a carmelist. Who cares what it is? So that can't be the pshat. And the Gemara actually stays with this, even though we're going to have two other pshatim, but it's all within this. Elalav Aresha. This halacha of at kama at beis osayim, that it could only be up to 2 sa, is going on the first part. Vachi kamar. We're talking about a stone that is 10 tvachim. It's a shusayachid. V'roicha v'arba. You can't go from a shusayachid, the stone, to the ocean. Vad kama at beis osayim. Hayasem at beis osayim mitaltalin. Oh, this is a big kash on Rabbi Yochanan. Alma, carmelisi. Why is it if it's more than 2 sa, I could carry from the stone to the ocean? Because it's a carmelis. So you have to do Rabbi Yochanan. Now, just as so you understand a little bit better, this stone is 10 tfachim high. So does this stone have walls? Noam says yes. And he's right. This stone has walls. Why does it have walls? Because it has 10 tfachim height. And when you have 10 tfachim height, good asik mechitzta. Those are the walls. The walls are its height. Yeah, you don't have a mechitza in the middle of the ocean, but the stone itself is its walls. As Rav Huna, then how does Rabbi Yochanan say that if you have a karfaf? Isn't this the same story? Why is this different than this? This Rabbi Yochanan said, if I take a ball and I throw it into here, I'm chayev misa. It's a deraisa. This is a rosh hashanah. This also has walls. Here's the walls. Here, these walls go up. We always said in the entire Eruvin, if you have a mound of dirt, those are the walls. Here's a mound. Here's a cellar. You have the walls. So if I throw, I shouldn't be able to carry from here to here. Why are you telling me this is considered a carmelis? This is considered a rosh hashanah according to Rabbi Yochanan. Omar Rava doesn't like this. That person who doesn't know how to answer up contradictions and brises, to Yufta Moisavle, Miller Rabbi Yochanan, he's going to ask me a question on Rabbi Yochanan? No way. Says Rava, beautiful pshat. We're saying at kamad beis osayim. No, of course it's Rosh Hashanah. And of course you can't go from this guy into the ocean. You can't go from this. This is Rosh Hashanah. So what does it mean at beis osayim? At beis osayim, when do I have to stop carrying, period, if I'm stuck on this island? Avada, I can't go from the island to the ocean. This is Rosh Hashanah to Carmelis. But not only that, if this island is more than 2 sa, sayim, 100 by 50 amma, I can't even carry there at all. I can't carry. I can't walk on Shabbos from here to there with something in my hand. Why? Because it's gonna, you can't carry on something so large. It's like Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so Mele Rabbi Yochanan is right. Of course, it's Rosh Hashanah, and I can't go from there to there, and therefore, if I throw a ball into Karfaf, you're chayiv misa. Rav Ashi Omar. Rav Ashi says also, he agrees to Rava, we're talking about the ratio, we're talking about a stone that's more than 10 tefachim high. But he looks at it differently. That, yes, same thing, Rabbi Yochanan, it's good, this is Rosh Hashanah, this is Rosh Hashanah. But we're not talking about like Rava carrying over here, we're actually continuing with the same theme. Could you carry from the Rosh Hashanah to the Carmelis? Oh, but you're not allowed to carry from Rosh Hashanah to the Carmelis. You could. Sometimes you could. Why? Chachamim removed their Isser. Who invented the Isser of Carmelis? Chachamim. Chacham say in this case you could. Why? They're the ones that invented the Isser. They're the ones that are going to remove the Isser. They're the ones that said that a karfaf that's more than 2 saw. Yeah, Rabbi Yochanan's case of throwing the ball into the mechitzos. You have to treat it like Rosh Hashanah. You can only carry 4 amas. And they also said, they made a second Isser. And you cannot go from a stone to the ocean. You can't go from Rosh Hashanah to Karmelis. They're the ones that invented the Isser. And if it's less than 2 saw, I could carry in the entire island. Come Rabbanan and say, you're not allowed to go from the ocean to the stone and vice versa. My time, Rosh Hashanah is considered Rosh Hashanah. So that fits in beautifully with Rabbi Yochanan. But if it's more than 2 saw, listen to this, it's mamish counterintuitive. If it's less than 2 saw, I'm stuck. But if it's more than 2 saw, the asr datula bikulei, it's asr. Now it's 2 saw, so I cannot carry on my island at all. No, isn't this counterintuitive? I'm not allowed to carry here in anything, but I'm allowed to go from the island into the water. Why? They had to do so. They had to remove that isser. Because if you're not allowed to go from the island to the water, people are going to say, oh, that's a Rosh Hashanah. And what's step 2? If they say it's Rosh Hashanah, oh, then you're allowed to carry in it. But you're not allowed to carry in it. But wait a minute. Why can't I carry on it? Because it's Issa D'Rabbanan. So I'm trying to save that Issa D'Rabbanan again. If I allow you to carry, if I say you cannot carry from the island into the water, you might think it's a Rosh Hashanah. Why can I carry from the island to Rosh Hashanah? Oh, because it's Rosh Hashanah. Oh, if it's Rosh Hashanah, you're going to come to carry on the island. But to carry on the island is only Issa D'Rabbanan. And to go from the island to the water is also Issa D'Rabbanan. So I allow a Issa D'Rabbanan to go from the island to the water so that people won't do an Issa D'Rabbanan to carry on the island. How does that make sense? Oh, that's the Gemara's question. Umayshna. What's the difference between the 2 Isurim? Why would I, whatever the word is, why would it be matter one Isur not to do another Isur when both of these Surim are D'Rabbanan? Again, just so I see people are looking at me a little, what's going on here? Again, there's an Isur to carry on the island. Isur D'Rabbanan, because it's more than 2 saw. There's also Isur D'Rabbanan to carry from the island into the water, because the island is Rosh Hashanah. The water is a Karmel, but Karmel is only D'Rabbanan. I'm going to allow you to carry from the island into the water so that people don't get confused and think that the island is Rosh Hashanah. And if they do get confused, what's going to happen? They might carry on the island. But it's only Isur D'Rabbanan to carry on the island. So I'm going to take away Isur D'Rabbanan to carry from the island to the water in order so that you're not over and Isur D'Rabbanan carrying on the island. Why? To carry on the island is something that happens very common. And therefore what? What's the next step? You might come to carry in Rosh Hashanah. That's very important to remember. You might come to carry in Rosh Hashanah. I don't want you to carry in Rosh Hashanah. It's very big. It's wide. People say, oh, it's like Rosh Hashanah. So maybe I'll allow something that barely ever happens. Let's stop here, Rabbi Isai. Once again, Yishkoach David for traveling all the way out here. Yishkoach to all the people in New York. A few people traveled. I don't know if they got home at 3. Well, Eli Dykeman used to get home every morning at 2:30, but Yishkoach to all those people that traveled, that came out. Yishkoach to everybody here, actually. It's already after 12 a.m., and you guys are here, so Yishkoach, thank you very much. Shira Malois. Have a wonderful day, Rabbi Isai. Kim והוא ידע ישראל מכל אבן ישראל, וכן גם ישראל, אני צריך למצוא שתו, רגע לא בזמן קורי ונאמר